things better. But just like, help me and I help you. No, you help yourself first. Let me see you doing something serious. Because we've seen these sort of things too many times. I'm over 70 now, and I'm no longer a government employee. My mouth has been ungagged, and I'm talking and I'm saying what I feel. And it's important that the elderly in this nation should be respected. One, I find this wicked, I find it disrespectful, I find it unlawful, I find it totally wrong, period. Because you don't solve your problems by sacrificing your aged. That's the last thing you should do, especially when you don't have any services that are specially geared at the comfort and the relief of the aged. The national insurance system has virtually collapsed. The elderly are buying their medications at normal commercial prices. And I know a lot of people who have told me that they have timed the way they did their investments so that at least every month there's something for them to be able to cover their medical bills with. Now people are asking pharmacists, oh, can I, is it safe for me, instead of 2, can I take 1 a day? Or if instead of 1, can I take half a day? How long can I continue like that before having a bad effect on me? Should it come to that, after years of faithful pharmacists, oh, can I, is it safe for me, instead of 2, can I take 1 a day? Or if instead of 1, can I take half a day? How long can I continue like that before having a bad effect on me? Should it come to that, after years of faithful service to the nation? So the Minister of Finance had better go back to the drawing board and come back with a better proposal, because otherwise nobody is going to. I'm encouraging people not to agree to sign up to anything. Yes, and if need be, you can all go to court. That's all. A contract, and it has to be respected.
So that's the former Chief Justice Sophia Kufu speaking. There was a long interaction, but we've just brought you these excerpts from the Finance Ministry, and a number of them in their numbers in the scorching sun. Some of them seated and the likes were chanting the national anthem. That was when I was there. They were reacting to this and insisting that the government exempt their pension or their investment from the domestic debt exchange program. And so at exactly 4 p.m. today, the administrative window for persons to subscribe to the DDEP, that's the domestic debt exchange program, will close. The finance minister has appealed to the public to participate in the program, as he warned that the Ghanaian economy is on the verge of collapse and badly needs a debt exchange program. So what happens today if government doesn't meet the participation target? Let's engage Dr. Patrick Esumi, an economist and a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. And then shortly we'll go back to the Finance Ministry as well and speak to my colleague Sani Abdul Rahman, because there's a meeting that's been planned by the Finance Ministry. In fact, the Chief Director of the Ministry communicated with the convener of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum while I was there. But Dr. Patrick Esumi has joined us on phone. Many thanks, Doc, for joining us this afternoon. So, final day for individuals to sign on to the program. That is, if government doesn't introduce another extension. What do you reckon would happen with the state still finding it difficult to meet its 80% target?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to listeners. Thanks for having me. Well, I mean, when the last short extension was announced, the impression was that this really wasn't a substantive extension per se, that it should handle some administrative matters. But you still get the sense from the picketing that has been going on, and also I think earlier in the week, a deputy finance minister was speaking. You get the sense that, maybe the government hasn't reached the target as was initially anticipated. So there's a sense that there's some last-minute engagement going on, and the pensioners are adamant that they should be completely excluded. So, we might end today, and we might still not meet the target, at least the target that the government has set for itself. It might decide to. So you get a sense that if the pensioner groups the pensioners, individual pension holders are exempted, we will definitely not meet the target.
Right.
But the strength of the opposition and the range and the diversity of people who are joining the call for them to be excluded is quite high. So if the finance ministry plans to exclude them, it means something else has to give.
Something else has to give. What could that be? The economy collapsing? Because that's the position of government.
Well, I think, yes, the longer this goes on without a finalization, the longer the more likely it is that the IMF program will delay. And then, obviously, there's more uncertainty for the economy. But I don't think that, not reaching a deal today means the economy collapses. But we definitely want to avoid that uncertainty. We shouldn't use that the economy is going to collapse as a means to sort of blackmail people to sign up for this. People's concerns are genuine and they have to be addressed. And people just feel that it's too, if you are just entering retirement and suddenly you're going to receive a substantial cut, it's too sudden for them and they have legitimate concerns why they are asking for that. So instead of saying that if you don't do this, the economy will collapse, we should now look for different ways. At least the individual bondholders brought up a lot of suggestions.
Right.
I mean, some of them will not be done in a matter of a few days for the debt exchange program. But at least if you do them, we know that going forward, it will also help the public finances. So I don't think this should be treated at all as today. If you don't get a deal finalized, then the world comes to an end.
But in terms of a credibility going on to the international market, because this is just domestic debt. There's the international debt to restructure that appeared to be headed towards the right footing. But we've seen reportages and the likes, the president asking other G20 countries and the likes to help to make China join the country's debt exchange program. In terms of the credibility going forward on the international level, do we seem to have that with all of the noise going on with the current domestic one we're engaged in?
Well, I think there's a major credibility issue from how the domestic one has been handled. So you hope that the government would have learned lessons from that in terms of how it finalizes the international one. I wasn't particularly impressed that the president will use a public forum to publicly encourage one country to get another country to join on board. I think that, you expect that these things will be done a little bit more on the quiet. And when people have lent you money, they have the right to have concerns when you're asking them to take much less than they are entitled to. So, again, we started by not doing the thing properly, in thinking that we were going to impose this on people. And then it's backfired. So if we need to take time to go through the mill and do it properly, let us do that. And not try and, get people, it really seems like trying to blackmail people that if you don't sign on, the economy is dead. I don't think that is. Yes, the economy is in bigger trouble the longer this delays. But that shouldn't be the reason why we shouldn't properly engage and address people's concerns.
Right, then, Doc. I'm sure we'll continue to come to you in the course of the days and weeks for a lot more on this. But many thanks for speaking to us this afternoon.
Have a good afternoon.
That's Dr. Patrick Isumi. He is an economist and senior lecturer with the University of Ghana Business School. The Ghana Medical Association, they have also waded into all of this, with today expected to be the final day. They've issued a statement. I'll just walk listeners through it as we try and connect with my colleague Sani Abdul Rahman, who is still at the Finance Ministry. And it's important to note that the minister says that he will be seeking to engage the pensioner bondholders today to try, and it's not really clear exactly what the purpose of that meeting is, but there's been a meeting that has been scheduled for later today. The minister, per indications we got, was in a meeting earlier and is scheduled to meet the pensioner bondholders forum after that meeting. As at now, whether that meeting is ongoing is still not quite clear yet, but we'll try and reach Dr. Edwan Anientri as well, who's the convener of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum, for some details on that. But let me just walk listeners through the statement. But you're listening to the news here on 3FM 92.7. We're streaming live on Facebook, the handle 3FM 927. Let me just walk you through that statement from the Ghana Medical Association now, because they say that they've noted with concern the attempt to classify only funds regulated by the NPRA as pension funds in the second amended and restated exchange memorandum from the Republic of Ghana regarding the domestic exchange program. That's a debt exchange program dated the 3rd of February 2023. The GMA's pension fund was set up in 2002 to augment the meager pensions medical doctors receive on retirement. Its setup and operation thus preceded the coming into force of the National Pensions Act 2008 and the subsequent implementation of the three-tier pension scheme in 2010. They go on to say that it is important to note that the GMA's pension fund has served as one of the tools to attract more doctors to stay and serve in Ghana despite the paltry salaries and pensions they receive. It has since its inception operated as a pension fund with benefits paid out only upon retirement as per the trust deed. No withdrawal is permitted before retirement. It is also instructive to know that the GMA's pension fund does not give loans or overdraft from the foregoing. The GMA's pension fund is and still operates as a pension fund for doctors in Ghana. Now, per the agreement between the government of Ghana and organized labor, of which the GMA is a member, signed on Thursday, the 22nd of December 2022, with the Minister of Finance, Mr. Kenofo Furiata, and the Honorable Ignatius Bafwe, the Minister of Employment and Labor Relations, executing same on behalf of the government, and Dr. Anthony Yauba, Secretary General of TUC, on behalf of the organized labor. Paragraph 1 stated as follows: government has decided to grant exemption to all pension funds in the DDE program. In line with this, the Ghana Medical Association is duly exempted, or the GMA's pension fund is duly exempted and does not fall under the current DDE program. Let's get on the phone now. Sani Abdul Rahman is my colleague at the Finance Ministry. He's joining us on phone with some more on this. So, Sani, the indication was that there was to be a meeting between the pensioner bondholders and the Finance Minister. Do we get an indication if that meeting has begun?
Mawuena, as I speak to you, the meeting is ongoing between the leadership of the pensioner bondholders group and the officials from the Finance Ministry. I must say this is more or less like the third meeting between these two parties as they seek to find a lasting solution over this whole issue surrounding the debt exchange program, whether they will be granted the exemption they've been protecting for, or government may offer them a much better bond. But we know the pensioners have made it quite clear that there is no enticing kind of offer from the government regarding this whole debt exchange program that may entice them enough to participate in the exercise. So the meeting is ongoing here. But the conversation we've been taking has been largely around the fact that whether government will be meeting the required level of participation or not, because we know as we speak now, government has not met the target. A day ago, when the Deputy Finance Minister, Abina Osasari, granted an interview, he indicated that they are a little over 50% And we know even if the commercial banks, the Bank of Ghana, Sunit, rural banks, insurance companies, firms and institutions decide to all participate in the exercise, it will take government to somewhat 70% regarding the participation. And that's so below the 80% target government is looking for. So it means a lot of engagement will be needed for government to bridge the gap, which appears quite unlikely, looking at the intense positions that the agitating bondholders have taken.
Right then, that's Sani Abdul Rahman. We'll return to him in the course of the day to provide a lot more. But as you heard him mention, that meeting, which we mentioned, is currently ongoing between the leadership of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum and the Finance Ministry. We'll just move away from this and bring you this story because the opposition NDC has waded into the running fight between the Attorney General and the Auditor General over the publication of the Special Audit Report on COVID-19 expenditure. The Attorney General had described the publication as premature and unconstitutional. Well, according to the NDC, the statements signed by the National Communications Officer, they described the AG's letter as unconstitutional and ungodly. Let's hear from the Director of Legal Affairs of the party, Abraham Amalba.
If you consider the Attorney General's letter, I see it as an intimidation of the Auditor General. The Auditor General has his work cut out to do these audits and present them to Parliament, which he has done, as well as on the website, which the law says he should do. I think that that letter is in bad taste. The Attorney General is becoming one Attorney General who is out there to protect the government. And so the party, the NDC party, is very right by calling on him to withdraw that letter, because that letter in itself is also unconstitutional. And you having an Attorney General intimidating him also smacks of an unconstitutional act from the Attorney General.
So that's the Director of Legal Affairs of the NDC. We'll hear a lot more from him in the course of this bulletin, as and when we're able to, because he's been speaking as well in relation to the controversy surrounding the sitting position of ousted Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu. But let's take you to Turkey now, because it's been more than 4 days since the devastating earthquake there and Syria, and the death toll has crossed the 20,000 mark as rescue workers race against time to find persons who remain trapped under the rubble. International humanitarian and relief efforts have intensified in the last few days as people remain without food. Well, one of the Ghanaians in Turkey, Gifty Adams, narrowly escaped the disaster that day. We managed to reach her, and from where she's been seeking shelter, and she's been speaking to my colleague Komla Adum as to exactly what the situation is there.
It happened in the morning around 4:30. I was in my room, and then normally this time is windy and our apartment is very long, so it's sometimes it shakes like this, but not this. On Monday it was so bad, everything was falling, my bed, everything was shaking, so I had to come down to where my family is, and on my way down, everything was falling down from the arcs, whatever from up was just falling down, and I had to sit on the stairs because the shaking was too much. It was so much, so intense, so heavy, and it lasted like 1 minute 45 seconds. That was the first one. So when it was coming down, we had to rush from the 10th floor using the stairs, and on our way down, the walls were just coming down, but we were able to get down quickly. And when we got down, we went to our car, and then the building just, it didn't collapse instantly. It just turned like this. And then most of the people were inside, they couldn't get out, and they were screaming for help, and it was so sad. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't, because it was so early, 4:30 in the morning. Everybody is sleeping that time. Most of the people were sleeping. So we were just standing there. We couldn't do anything. The buildings were just going down, 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 down. And we had to be on the road to a nearby, it's town. I'm living in Belan. Some people are living in Iskenderun. So we had to go to Iskenderun, and on our way to Iskenderun, the roads were just cracking, the sea coming on the road, and it's I don't know how to say it, but it's not easy. It was so bad, so bad. Talking about it makes me feel uh, so traumatized. And ever since Monday, I can't get out of bed. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I literally can't do anything.
Accept our sympathies. And so tell us about those friends and other people you knew who perhaps may not have been able to escape at all. And what have you been told so far about the efforts, the rescue efforts that have been ongoing since Sunday?
When it happened, people, it's like it happening in Accra, and people from Kumasi, they have to go and see their families and all that. So rescue team couldn't go through because there was so much traffic and it wasn't moving. You get it? Right. So in Antakya, which is like 30 minutes drive from where I live, that's where most of the family members live, and that place is an old place. Like Antakya is an old place, and most of the buildings are old, and due to that, I can say, if I'm not exaggerating, 80% of the buildings in Antakya is down, gone, and some are still under the buildings. There's no food, there's no electricity, there's no water, and it's cold. It's so cold. In some of the cities, it's snowing and people are freezing to death. It's sad.
Right. You mentioned earlier that you've not been able to get out of bed and all that. So how are you coping then? And are you in touch with any close relatives who are helping you out?
Some of the cities weren't affected. And I'm in one of the cities right now where one of my boss's parents have a house. So we were lucky to get here. And on our way here, there was so much accidents because people are panicking. People are in a hurry, and it's a disaster. Like it was so bad.
That's Gifty Adams narrating to us exactly what the situation in Turkey is at this particular time. As rescue efforts continue, more than 20,000 people have lost their lives as a result of the earthquake, the 7.8 magnitude earthquake that hit both Turkey and Syria. And you're listening to the news here on 3FM 92.7, returning to the country Ghana, where the NDC continues to remain in some turmoil of some sort, because tension amongst the new front bench of the opposition NDC in Parliament and our said minority leader appears far from over. It follows a decision by the former minority leader Haruna Idrisu to reject the seat offered him in the House, fresh from the party's reshuffle, which has caused considerable disquiet among party members. For Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, Dr. Rashid Draman, the event, which unfolded on Thursday, culminating in Haruna Idrisu rejecting a seat given him on his return to the House, spells doom. But the Director of Legal Affairs of the party, Abraham Amalaba, has dismissed the claims of a major rift within the front bench of the party.
The must come up with guidelines to deal with some of these matters. So, for instance, we are trying to fashion out guidelines for leadership in Parliament. And so these guidelines are the final solution to it. But I can tell you, there's unity amongst the party members, the rank and file, are all united. What happened in Parliament yesterday was just a storm in a teacup. It's not as if the changes have been rejected by members of Parliament. An individual thought that it wasn't proper to take a particular seat when his senior is the one who is sitting on that. And that, for me, is a small matter which can be dealt with. There's nobody who is against the changes. Even the minority leader, the previous minority leader, has taken it in good faith.
That's Director of Legal Affairs of the NDC, Abraham Amalba, speaking there. We'll end this afternoon's edition of the Bulletin with some news coming through from the Ashanti region, where a confrontation between some youth of Mansunkran in the Ashanti region and Asanko gold mines has left one person with gunshot wounds and many properties of the mine destroyed. We'll follow up on the story and bring you details of it subsequently if you stay with us here on 3FM 92.7. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta. Dela Michelle is on standby to bring you the very latest in the world of business. Don't forget that a lot more news on 3news.com. Business is next.
Hello there, good afternoon. It's now time to do some business news. My name is Dela Michelle. Coming up this afternoon, market watchers are skeptical about government's ability to meet its target for the domestic debt exchange program. We know the deadline for that is today at 4 p.m. Also, economist Professor John Gachi has admonished government to desist from meddling the fiscal operations of Cocoa Board. We have the details of these stories and many others coming shortly. Stay with us. Thank you for your company this afternoon. Let's begin with the debt exchange program, as market watchers are skeptical about government's ability to meet its target for the domestic debt exchange program. The Finance Ministry set an 80% target for subscription as part of efforts to bring down the country's debt to GDP to about 55% by 2025. This has prompted government to continuously extend the deadline in an attempt to convince bondholders to sign on. But speaking to 3 Business, Courage Boti of GCB Capital said it is obvious that the 80% target will be difficult to achieve.
Like on the institutional level, individuals have accepted the terms as offered now, and it looks like they might participate in full. Now the question becomes the individuals, the offshore bondholders in particular, who have been represented in this whole conversation, and whose views or position on whether they will participate or not, we do not exactly know. You can probably assume that there has been some engagement with some of the large investors, offshore investors, but for the small holders, no one knows their position as it stands and whether they will participate or not. So it looks like we will get some success, but the 80% as it stands, I don't think we might get exactly that, but maybe something close to that. And so at this point, I feel even a 65% success is actually good enough. And I am tempted to think that will be enough to get us a deal with the IMF.
You heard the voice of Courage Boti of GCB Capital there with regard to government meeting the deadline. Don't forget, this is the 5th consecutive time government has had to change the deadline to be able to meet. We've been told that today, 4 p.m., some conclusion will be met, but already we know where we are heading to. But stay with 3 Business as we're bringing you the update of that and many others subsequently. But let's still stay with investments. This time around, knowing for the longest time, government has been known as the most credible borrower. But ever since talks about the debt restructuring began, investors in government instrument have been seriously agitated because now the most credible borrower is unable to fulfill its obligations. Investors are left with no option than to take a bitter pill in the form of haircuts for the sake of the Ghanaian economy. Well, we've seen different bondholders come together to form groups pushing the agenda to safeguarding their members' investment. Well, 3Business have been engaging with an investment expert, William Mensah, to find out which other investment options are there for investors.
I think what has happened now also will lead us to sit up and look at investment very differently. We tend to concentrate our portfolios too much in very few assets. So now investors will be forced to look at the broad spectrum of all the all the possible investment options that are out there. So lending your money to government is on the extreme safety side, right? And then you also have the other extreme, which is investing as an entrepreneur, putting your money in a venture yourself. But in between those two extremes, there are all the possible things that we should also look at. If you cannot be an entrepreneur yourself, can you find a trustworthy entrepreneur to invest in? Can you find some other investment assets, real assets, commodities, real estate, etc., that you can put your money in? Or instead of investing in debt, would you look at investing in equities? Okay, so if you take our stock market, there are still very interesting companies who don't have any exposure to government securities that you can invest in. But even if you look at the debt front, there are still companies that you can lend money to expose yourself to debt, where their business is such that they don't have much correlation with what is happening in the government debt space.
You heard William Mensah. He is an investment expert. More stories this afternoon. Economist Professor John Gachi has admonished government to desist from meddling in the fiscal operations of Cocoa Board, as that undermines the efficiency of the National Cocoa Regulator. The Dean of Business School at the University of Cape Coast said the diversion of loans contracted by cocoa purchases to other government businesses must be halted. He was speaking to 3Business.
Cocoa Board owes an equivalent of more than $1 billion, arising from short-term loans and credits contracted from Bank of Ghana, among others. The cocoa regulator is facing some cash flow challenges, which led to delayed payment of matured cocoa bills last month. Professor John Gachi blames the government for the challenges.
Unfortunately, over the years, the syndicated loan taken by Cocoa Board has not been used by Cocoa Board alone. The government goes for the syndicated loan and use for what they want to use it for. And also, most of the cocoa rows and some projects have been forced on Cocoa Board to undertake, and the interest of government is served. So that is a huge problem of those arrangements that have been made by government in terms of utilizing the loans that Cocoa Board has taken. And that is a huge problem, and that is a major area that that the economy reform that is going on should focus on.
Maturing cocoa bills are being honored, with Cocoa Board's fixed deposit with banks, an indication the cash flow crisis has not been resolved. The Bank of Ghana, which had often rescued Cocoa Board to pay matured cocoa bills, can no longer intervene, as an agreement has been reached for the bank to reduce financing of state-owned enterprises with the IMF. This means Cocoa Board may have to find ways to address its debt challenges or risk losing investor confidence.
It's now time for us to bring you our Friday special. Pig farming has become one of the most lucrative and profitable animal enterprises in Ghana, with most individuals succeeding in commercial pig breeding. Pakosi Asare tells the story of Ruth Gina, a graduate teacher who is making it big in commercial pig farming.
Following the collapse of the local poultry industry, a lot of people have resorted to pig farming, because of its low cost of feed. It's the next big and thriving market here in Ghana. Many people are into piggery now. I visited the Gas South Municipal Assembly to speak to one of the young ladies who is thriving in the area of pig farming. 38-year-old Ruth Gina is a graduate teacher who has found love in pig farming. As early as 2012, Ruth developed a passion for livestock production and has been at it since.
I love animals, but I think I love the pigs most.
Her first attempt into commercial pig farming turned out unsuccessful following the emergence of the African swine flu, which wiped out all of her investments.
And unfortunately, I was hit by the African swine fever. Then I decided to restart again. I had some people who were working there and I was paying them monthly, but it didn't survive after the African swine fever.
But determined as she was, the setback did not deter her. Her passion for books and personal development would lead her to South Africa, where she pursued honors in health and behavioral sciences from the University of South Africa. Considering her love for piggery, Ruth took up a certificate course in its production. She will later return to Ghana in 2022 to set up another pig farm.
Now I have 102 piglets. I started from 28. So I will say it's a success because it's growing.
Inside Ashiniagbo in the Gas South district, Ruth now runs 2 separate farms with a total of over 100 pigs. The joy of watching these animals grow, she says, gives her lasting fulfillment.
This is where I want to be. I love what I do, so I do it with passion. Though I love teaching, yes, but I prefer rearing these pigs than teaching. I had a pig that used to stay in this room. Instead of drinking from the nipple, it comes, put the hand on the nipple and put the head under the nipple just to press the water and bath it. So when you look at such things, you just sit down and you admire and laugh.
Following the collapse of the poultry industry, many people have now shifted their attention to piggery because pigs are prolific breeders, producing 10 to 14 piglets in a single birth, making its commercial production very lucrative. Like every facet of the Ghanaian economy, Ruth now faces the challenge of high cost of feed.
Things were cool until recently that the price of feed started going higher and higher and higher, but we are still managing.
Recent rumors about the government's dealing with the United States to import pork and pork products into the country have stirred anxiety amongst many farmers. Ruth and her colleague farmers fear the agreement could take them out of business.
Instead of bringing in pork, the government can reduce feed so that we can buy the feed at affordable rates.
Like Ruth, many other pig farmers have resisted the supposed deal. Anthony Morrison of the Chamber of Agribusiness says any such attempt will be fiercely resisted.
We are going to meet Parliament and we may possibly finally proceed to court to seek for legal redress as to how this whole thing can be mitigated, because it's not good for the industry.
But the Agric Ministry has in a statement denied the allegation, saying it has no such intentions of importing pork from the United States. Only time will tell. For 3 Business, Pa Kwesi.
And that was our Friday special. Before we go, the cedi today made a turnaround, losing its value against the dollar. Bids for the dollar are higher at 12 cedis 40 pesos, with offers around 12 cedis 55 pesos. Market watchers attribute the decline to uncertainty surrounding the success or otherwise of the domestic debt exchange program. That's all the business news we have for you this afternoon. Log on to 3news.com for more business news. My name is Della Michelle. Thank you for your company. But of course, this is your Urban Lifestyle Radio. Blakk Rasta is standing by with Urban Blend. Please do enjoy.